Hello and welcome back to another Today Years Old video. It's been a while since we've done one of these career type chats, so I thought what better time to pick up the camera and go back to the roots. If you've been following my fintech startup journey, then I'll give you a company update in the next video. But what I've realised throughout that journey is, regardless of whether you're working as an entrepreneur, startup, corporate job, and regardless of what level you are in any corporate job, or in fact just any job, there are three key things you need to succeed in any career. I'm going to share them with you today. What are they? Networking, resilience, and helicopters. What do I mean? Let's get into it. First up, networking. There's a misconception that networking is about knowing loads of people, but this isn't true. Networking is about forging meaningful relationships. That means people that you know who to call on for what help, and they know what to come to you for what help. And there's two different skills. There's growing your network and leveraging your network. And to be good at networking, you have to nail both of these. But why is networking even important? Well, the world turns on reciprocity, and it turns on people helping each other. Whether that's helping you to learn a new skill, whether it's helping you find your next opportunity. In my case, I've spent a lot of time leveraging my network to help me grow my business. But if you're in an industry, particularly like consulting, where you're constantly moving from project to project, then you really need your network to help you find the right project that will help you grow your career. This is particularly important if you've just joined an organisation. Who are the right people to talk to? Who can help you get up to speed? Who can help you navigate your way around the company? These are all essential things, and the only way to do it is using a network. But how do you grow a network? Well, it depends. If you're in an existing organisation, then you might want to look at the different networks on offer. So within Accenture, we have a number of networks: LGBT, AACN, which is our Afro-Caribbean network. We have Accent on Gender, Accent on Family. We have a huge number of networks, but we also have technical ones for people that like DevOps or a particular type of development language. There's a network for everything. So if you're in a huge organisation, then you can probably find it through your organisation's portal. What happens though if you're looking for a network that isn't in an organisation? Well, there's two ways to manage this. Firstly, Google. So I'm particularly interested in looking at networks for people who are fintech entrepreneurs and fintech founders. So honestly, I've just been Googling things like fintech founder network and seeing what comes up. I found a few useful things. I'll include them in the description down below. Entrepreneur Collective and Portfolio Collective are two examples of really useful networking organisations that can help you to connect with loads of really interesting people. But there's another way to do this too. It's Twitter. I like to think of Twitter as a giant networking facilitator. So engaging with the people who are active in your space and sliding into their DMs in an appropriate way can be a really great way to spark a conversation. It can feel really nerve-wracking when you first reach out to someone, and if you're anything like me, it feels really uncomfortable. You feel almost nervous, and I'm yet to decide whether the pandemic has made this harder or easier. On the one hand, when you join a networking event remotely, it's easier to kind of hide behind your screen and you're in the comfort of your home. But then the flip side is it's harder to read people's body language, so it can be harder to forge a deeper connection with somebody than when you actually meet them face to face. But attending online networking events is really good, and honestly, the more you do it, I wouldn't say it gets easier, but the more comfortable you feel being uncomfortable. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's okay to feel a little bit uncomfortable when you're networking, because it just means that you're conscious of putting your best self forward. As long as you're not allowing that fear and that anxiety to overwhelm you. And if you are, and it's really not working, it's okay to just leave. If it's not the right network, if it's not your people, no problem. Move on, because they will be out there. Having loads of connections is great, but connections alone are pretty meaningless unless you know how to use them. Now, this is not a political channel, but I have been reading a book recently called How Women Rise, and I'd really recommend it. I'll include a link in the description below. But one of the points they raise in there is that women in particular are very bad at knowing how to effectively leverage their network to get something that works for them. Often women don't want to be seen as being out for themselves or being selfish, so they often don't ask for advice or reach out to their network to help them when they have every right to do so. Now, please don't hate on me in the comments. It's a very broad sweeping statement, and I would recommend you put it into its context by reading the book, link in the description. But it got me reflecting. Especially now, when I'm starting my own company, my network is the most valuable asset I have. And I have started to overcome the fear of reaching out to people who I haven't spoken to for a long time and just kind of asking for 5 minutes of their time, asking them for some advice, asking them, hey, can I buy you a coffee and can we have a chat about this? And you know what? 9 out of 10 times, people have said yes. And this isn't like I'm just reaching out to them because I'm being selfish and I want a whole load of stuff. I will always help people in return. And it comes back to what I said at the beginning, which is leveraging your network is not about being selfish. It's about knowing what you bring to the table and what others bring to the table and how you can all have a balanced meal. Secondly, we have resilience. No is a word you will hear throughout your career, probably thousands if not millions of times, but it's not a word we should shy away from. And just because somebody said no doesn't mean we should pack up shop and go home. Quite the reverse. Resilience is about knowing how to take a knock and come back from it stronger. Let me give you an example. When I was 18, I applied for about 40 jobs straight after leaving school. And I was rejected from every single one of them. I know why. I had no experience, and even though what I'd applied for, like stacking the shelves of a warehouse in Asda, like I can do that, but they said no. And I decided if no one would employ me, I'd better employ myself. And so, age 18, I set up my own business, and this was the first time I set up my own business. Now, the company itself, honestly, was not a roaring success, and I was recently reminded of my own website, which I've closed down because it was mortifying and embarrassing and should not contain that many exclamation marks. The business also made a tiny amount of money, but really it was only 3 figures of profit, and I had to work a lot of hours for that, so I was definitely paying myself less than the minimum wage, that's for sure. So financially the business wasn't a huge success, but it was a success really, because it gave me loads of really well-rounded experience to put on my CV, and I would say that every other job I've had in my entire career has in some way tied back to that first setting up my business. And if I hadn't been rejected, I wouldn't have done that. So I know now that I was better off because I was rejected. Resilience is not about just blindly looking for the positives to kid yourself. It's not just saying, oh, everything will be all right, and not taking any actions to own that. It's about having some analytical skills and really analysing why did this not go in the direction I wanted it to? How can I either change what I was doing to get it there, or do I actually need to slightly change my direction? And so we come to the third and final skill essential for your career, the helicopter. If you think about a helicopter, it can circle around wherever it is. It can come in for a bit more detail, but then it can also quickly withdraw to get a more high level view. The same is true for your career. If you're somebody who is a detail person and you pride yourself on attention to detail, that's great. But sometimes these people get lost in the wood for the trees. Likewise, if you're someone who loves the bigger picture, that's also great, but sometimes these people let the really basic stuff slip. Being the helicopter is about making sure that you don't fall into either of those traps. Knowing when do you need to zoom in to the detail versus when do you need to zoom out to be able to take that holistic, strategic helicopter view is an absolutely essential skill. How do you actually do that? Well, if you're somebody who is used to being in the detail, then to lift yourself out, you need to start asking yourself questions like why. Let me give you an example. I'm writing this report. Why am I writing this report? Because my manager wants to see it. Why does my manager want to see it? Because they need to tell the senior manager. Why does the senior manager care? Because they need to report to the CEO. Why does the CEO care? Because this is a key strategic objective for our organisation. Why is this a key strategic objective for our organisation? Because the market is moving to be more digital, for example. Why is the market moving to be more digital? Because there are XYZ technologies changing the market. And you keep constantly asking yourself why until you get to zoom out on a bigger and bigger and bigger picture. You have to be able to drag yourself out of the transactional day-to-day, see a thing, do a thing, pass the thing on, to really empower yourself. But what if you have the reverse problem? What if you're so used to looking at this high level view that you constantly get the basics wrong? Well, maybe no one's ever said this to you before, but if you are constantly getting your basic stuff, like your formatting, your spelling, your basic addition, your putting ideas through without actually thinking them through properly, you rushing stuff and you're cutting corners, people lose respect for you and they stop taking you seriously. So it's essential that you get the basics right. How do you do this? Honestly, in this day and age where there is spell check, there is no excuse for sending especially if it's like a client-facing document or something that's going to be read by quite a lot of people, there is no excuse for sending it with errors in it. Same is true of formatting. If you're producing a report and the rag status is green, use the same green throughout, right? Not just on the same slide, but throughout the whole deck, unless there is a reason not to use that colour green, in which case, put a key that tells people why you've changed colour. Same with formatting fonts. Nothing annoys me more. Okay, maybe some things do, but this annoys me a lot. When you see a slide and it's got different fonts on the same slide, there is no excuse for this, and you can very easily check it. If you're numbering your slides, are the numbers always in the same place on every slide? And you know what? I learnt this the hard way. I learnt this because I kept cutting these corners and I kept going to an MD and presenting this deck every week, and every week, I would say for about 3 weeks, he would find some formatting issue with my slides. And every time it made my toes curl, because there is zero excuse for sloppiness like this. It is pure sloppiness. And you know what? it was so valuable. I'm so glad that I learnt that, because I'm never going to make that mistake again. And all the people that I coach and manage, everyone has it drilled into them not to make the same mistakes. So it's about knowing when do you need to zoom in, when do you need to zoom out, and what is the wider context. And if you understand that, and you're resilient, and you leverage your network, the world's your oyster. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please give it a like. Comment down below with whatever you think are essential skills for your career. Would love to hear them. And don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. See you on the next one.